going to double check anyway. We are at 1.25. We are on video 317. Ooh. We are on video 317. Yeah, that's crazy. That is crazy. It says there are 493 videos. However, I think some of them are hidden. I don't know why, so we can't watch those. I don't know how many there are that are hidden. Also, these videos, like some are only 40 minutes long, 15 minutes long. So these videos in this half are shorter. There are a lot of 2-hour videos. There are. But these videos are shorter. But it looks like today, so this video is 2 hours, next video is 2 hours. We will get through part of the next video. And we still have four days that I know of for a fact with this guy on the stand. Dr. starts with the W. Where? I can't remember if that S is on the end or not. I just can't remember. Dr. Ware, I think it is, which is the smartest person in the room. And the lawyer with the smirk that drives you crazy. But look, I don't know if you can see my my cursor. So Judge Ito's hourglasses have changed. I know people have sent him hourglasses during the trial. These weren't there before. These boxes, the timepieces in a box, that's new. It just looks like he has different hourglasses than he used to have. He still has a messy desk though. Very, very messy desk. But, alright, we're going to press play and get moving.
Mr. Thompson, Mr. Neufeld. Did I miss anybody? People represented by Mr. Clark and Mr. Darden. Jury is not present. Mr. Neufeld, you indicated you had a couple of matters before we invite the jurors to
Yes, two matters.
All right, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. First of all, Your Honor, in light of the argument that we just heard regarding the manner in which Dr. Weir intends to present frequency data, one thing is absolutely clear, and if you permit him to testify to those numbers, is those numbers do not answer the same question as appears on those boards, like the Bronco board. The Bronco board question is framed as not excluded, and what percentage of the population would not be excluded. And he's answering a different question. That, I think there's no dispute about. Consequently, I would ask that the court instruct the prosecution not to let them put these numbers in that column, but instead offer them either on another board, or they can simply offer the tables, in fact, that Dr. Weir has. But since the court is allowing this testimony, it undisputably answers a different question than the question posed on that board.
Okay, and what else? You said you had two matters.
Yes. The second one is, Your Honor, that in Dr. Weir's report, he refers to a second cell-mark database. There's a 1992 database, and then he says a 1994 database. Robin Cotton only testified to the 1992 database. The only database in evidence in this case is the 1992 database. This witness cannot lay the foundation to introduce a cell-mark database. That would come from Robin Cotton. Since all the testimony and all the statistics that have been offered so far for the data in this case is predicated on the 1992 database, I would ask the court to instruct the prosecution to limit Dr. Weir to the database that's already in evidence, because there's no foundation for the other one.
Mr. Clark?
Well, I believe we're able to lay a very careful foundation about that data. In addition to the evidence code, which allows reliance on that type of material anyway. So I'm not sure where the objection is headed.
Well, no, Your Honor, I think it should be a profit. We should have this resolved right now. I honestly think that it's Cellmark's database. They created it. They're the source of it. And it hasn't been introduced by Cellmark. And I don't believe that this witness then has the right to give expert testimony on a database which isn't in evidence. And I thought that was actually an earlier ruling of this court on a somewhat different issue, but limiting databases only to those databases which have been introduced in this case and relied upon by the representatives of the two laboratories, namely Cellmark and DOJ.
I frankly don't recollect having ruled upon that issue before, Mr. Neufeld.
Well, I don't have it in front of me, but be that as it may, even without that, Your Honor, I don't believe that that this witness can rely on a database which is not already in evidence from the witnesses from the laboratory whose data this witness is relying on.
All right, do you have any case authority indicating that an expert witness under these circumstances is not entitled to rely upon what would otherwise be hearsay evidence in forming expert opinions?
It's not hearsay. It's not just hearsay evidence. It's not the data of other experts, of learned treatises, or anything like that. What it is he's actually relying on the creation of a database which has never been introduced by the party who would be most appropriate to introduce it, namely the representatives from Cellmark.
Right.
I don't see how that in any way fits into a hearsay exception.
Mr. Clark?
Well, perhaps I can indicate to the court the basic manner this will be presented, not only as to the mixture frequencies, those are calculated based on the FBI databases, if I remember correctly. So this would relate to any comments that Dr. Weir makes about the already reported frequencies. We have no intent of having Dr. Weir, despite the fact that he's done it in his report, the defense may want to question him about it, he's made his own calculations using some additional steps. I don't intend to introduce those numbers. All Dr. Weir will do in terms of the results that are on the board, I anticipate, is he will describe the fact that those are appropriate, based on his examination of not only the 92 database that Mr. Neufeld mentioned, but also the 94 database as well, as part of what he has examined. Now, he's already described to this court a fairly close relationship with Cellmark Diagnostics in terms of examining the databases. So I'm not quite sure where the legal objection is.
I take it to be a foundational objection at this point.
Well, he obtains this material from Cellmark. They explain to him very carefully what it is.
All right,
He
well,
works with it and uses it.
I assume I'll hear that during the course. I assume this is a preliminary objection, and we'll hear it.
There's a similar concern then, given what Mr. Clark just said, and I wasn't sure of Dr. Weir's testimony about this particular issue, but he also mentioned that for the various PCR databases, he's relying on FBI databases. It's my understanding in this case that both DOJ and Cellmark are relying on Dr. Blake's worldwide database for the DQ alpha numbers, and that was what I received in discovery, in fact, from both DOJ and Cellmark, not FBI databases. And I would, for separate reasons, ask that that be the only DQ alpha database relied upon in Dr. Weir's calculations. Certainly the FBI isn't even a party to this case, if you will. I mean, it has not been part of this case, at least with respect to DNA typing. And there's no way that there could be any foundation for the other database. And it is my recollection, Your Honor, that the court did limit testimony to those databases that we also received discovery of. So I would have an additional objection to...
Well, I don't recollect that either.
Well, then there's a discovery. Then there'd be a discovery objection, Your Honor, as well, with respect to an FBI DQ alpha database, because the only databases we've been given in discovery in this case for DQ alpha comes from Dr. Blake's worldwide database.
Mr. Clark?
In reverse order, in Dr. Weir's February 95 report provided to the defense, it is replete with references to the 94 database from Cellmark. And I have received, to my knowledge, absolutely no request for that information from the defense, despite the fact that it's been in their possession 4 months approximately, or however that time period is. As to the DQ alpha results, I'm a little unclear what the legal objection is. Dr. Weir can use any database that he feels is appropriate to perform his own calculations. And when his purpose here is simply to offer an opinion about what's the reliability of these frequencies, I don't know of anything that stops him from using a North Carolina database or anything that is appropriately used in his profession. So again, I think the court's identified it as premature, but I see no legal bar at this point to that testimony.
All right. I agree. At this point, I think it is premature. Do you have any other comment regarding his objection to putting the numbers on the board in the same category as the other numbers?
I think putting them in the exact locations as the testimony will reveal what they mean. Everything is accurate. These people are not excluded. Dr. Weir will carefully describe in the instances of both 2 contributors, 3 contributors, or tomorrow at the Bronco also 4 contributors, we find this combination approximately this often. So I don't see a need to create basically another addition to the board. Otherwise, the jury will lose any ability to put all of these pieces of evidence together.
All right.
That's not what Dr. Weir is even offering these numbers for. I think it's very, very clear that that board is limited to the percentage of the population not excluded. Dr. Weir is not giving that number. He's giving a very different number. That he's acknowledged. And all I'm simply saying is, so as not to further confuse the jury at that point, that he present those numbers on a separate table.
All right, I'm going to require the prosecution on that board to add in the column of frequency with regards to each one of the mixtures a small label to the side indicating that it is a mixture calculation that is there so that they can differentiate one from the other. But I think it's appropriate to group them in that manner since they are physically found in those locations, and to split it up on yet another board, I don't think is appropriate at this point. All right, let's have the jurors.
With those boards without the labels, yes, this afternoon.
But I'm going to direct you to have them by tomorrow morning.
All right.
You're on the edge of the
What is the court proposing to say?
mixture. So we understand that it is a different calculation.
Like an asterisk?
No, just put in vertical letters MIXTURE on a label, stick it on the side of the frequency column.
For
Each mixture.
Mixture. Also, just good scheduling. First thing I intend to get at, of course, is the mixtures. Assuming that they finish even at 5, I would like to break for the day at that point, and not have to start my course until he finishes the rest.
We'll see when we get there, if we get there.
Stop talking in front of the jury, boys.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. All right, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's always my policy to explain to you why it is we get late starts. We started this morning at 9 o'clock with a hearing regarding the evidence that you're about to hear. It took longer than I thought it would.
Is this
as
less
just about everything I
echoey?
guess
I'm
these days.
sorry.
So I
Is this
apologize
less?
to you for having kept you so long. And without further ado, Mr. Clark, you may call the prosecution's next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Bruce Weir, please.
It was not just you.
Bruce Weir, B-R-U-C-E-W-E-I-R.
Do we have the red water cup? Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Not Weir.
Good
It's
afternoon, Dr. Weir.
Weir.
Good afternoon.
Bruce
Could you
Weir.
describe who you're employed by?
I'm employed at the North Carolina State University
And that's located in North Carolina?
in North Carolina, in the capital city of Raleigh.
How are you employed?
I'm a professor of statistics and genetics
At North Carolina State University?
at North Carolina State.
Could you describe, well, let me rephrase that. As a professor of, and I'm sorry, you said statistics?
Statistics and genetics. I'm housed in a statistics department, but I have a courtesy appointment in genetics, which
I
gives
would
me
do
certain
anything for you.
responsibilities and rights to both those two departments.
Could you describe for the jury, please, as far as your position at North Carolina State in that department, what are your duties?
Well, they are primarily to conduct research in the appropriate statistical methods to interpret DNA data and genetic data in a more general. So primarily to conduct research, I think my appointment is something like a 75% research appointment. The remainder of the time I teach courses in this area and I supervise graduate students.
If you could, Dr. Weir, perhaps pull the microphone a little bit towards you.
Excuse me.
Could you describe for us, please, your educational background?
I have a bachelor's degree in mathematics. I took that in New Zealand. I then came to this country in 1965 to North Carolina State. I did a PhD degree in statistics with a minor in genetics, so I was studying both subjects. At the conclusion of that in 1969, I went to the University of California at Davis as a postdoctoral genetics student.
Could you describe, please, a little bit about what statistics mean as far as your particular area of interest?
Well, statistics means data in essence, so it's the study of data, how we interpret data, how we might go about drawing inferences from data. And for genetic data, anything that has to do with the transmission of a trait from parent to offspring, if it's a thing like height or IQ or something as simple as one of these DNA markers we've been hearing about. Any genetic entity, if it can be measured or counted, I can analyze it.
You've described the fact that you received your PhD in statistics, is that correct?
That's right.
And is that why you are appropriately dressed as doctor?
Yes, sir.
You also, I believe, mentioned that you had what you called a minor in genetics.
Yes, the minor regarded the formal training, the coursework I took and the examinations I had to pass in both statistics and genetics. My PhD research was a theoretical piece of statistics, but on a genetic problem. It was to do with the way that we expect gene frequencies to behave, for example. So I think the motivation of all my work is genetic, but the tools I use to do that work are statistical.
What relationship, if any, does this area that you've referred to as genetic have with DNA?
Well, of course, our DNA underlies all of genetics. All of genetic information is DNA information. So when I say I analyze genetic data, what I'm really saying is I analyze data which eventually depends on the DNA.
Could you describe for us, please, after, and I believe you said that while you were at the University of California at Davis, you did some postgraduate work?
That's right, yes.
Did you then obtain employment after that?
Yes, I went back to my native New Zealand as a senior lecturer in the mathematics department, and I was there for 6 years teaching mathematics, teaching primarily statistics actually, but continuing my research in genetics. I remained there 6 years and then came back to North Carolina State when I joined the faculty in 1976.
The time you were back at school as a lecturer in mathematics and statistics in Australia, was that at a particular school?
Mr. Clark, it was New Zealand,
I'm sorry.
and I was
That's
on the
unpardonable. I'm
I was
sorry.
on the faculty. I was not a student.
While you were in New Zealand at the university, what school was that?
It's a Massey University, Massey.
When you returned to the United States, to North Carolina State, what position did you take there?
I came as an associate professor, and I've subsequently been promoted to full professor of statistics and genetics.
Let's start with your position as an associate professor. What does that include? What type of
Well-
duties in that position?
Oh, well, just the same as they are now, essentially. At that time, my appointment was 100% research, and I gradually picked up some teaching responsibilities.
In other words, teaching actual classes with students in statistics?
Actual classes with actual students, yes.
And then I believe you also said that you became a full professor at some point?
Yes, I think in 1981 I was promoted to full professor.
And have you been in that position since?
Until 1992, when I got a further promotion, if you like, and I have it's a named professorship, so I have the title of a William Neal Reynolds Professor of Statistics and Genetics.
What does that mean to go from a professor position to a named professor position?
Oh, it's a sign that I'm doing good work. It's a mark of honor at our institution. It's a good thing.
And are you in that position currently, that named professor?
Fortunately, it's a lifetime position.
All right, excuse me, gentlemen. Dr. Weir, if I could ask you to allow Mr. Clark to finish asking his question before we start to answer, since the court reporter is having difficulty if you talk over each other. Thank you, sir. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Your Honor. During this time period, from your education, that is your formal education, through to the present day, have you received any honors or awards?
Yes, there have been some. I think the one I'm most proud of outside the university is a Guggenheim Fellowship I received in 1983. That's a fellowship which carries a sum of money, and you get it by entering into a competition, essentially. And they're quite prestigious, and we were very pleased to get that. And that enabled me to take a year away from North Carolina, and I went to the University of Edinburgh in Scotland on a year's sabbatical.
And during that time period, what type of work did you do?
Well, it was a real luxury. I didn't have any responsibility, so I used that year to do some learning about the current DNA methodology. I needed to learn some new words, as I'm sure you've been hearing here. The current DNA methods, the current molecular biology has changed over the last 10 years, and at that time, I needed to learn a new language.
What year was that again, this one-year fellowship?
That was 83 to 84.
And you said that was at the University of Edinburgh in Scotland.
Yes, sir.
Did that coincide with any events going on in the DNA world in England at that time, approximately?
It turned out so, although I didn't realize at the time, not very far from where I was, having my year of luxury. Professor Jeffries was just down the road at the University of Leicester, developing the RFLP markers that were used in forensic applications. He was, in essence, developing DNA fingerprints at about that time.
As far as professional organizations or societies, are you members of any of those?
Yes, part of my job requires me to keep abreast of developments in the field, and going along with that, I need to belong to the organizations that contain similar people.
Can you give us some examples of such organizations that you're a member of?
Yes, I think the most relevant ones are the American Statistical Association, the Genetics Society of America, and the American Society for Human Genetics.
Are you also members of other organizations as well in the areas of statistics and genetics?
Yes, there are several others. There's one called the Biometrics Society. Biometrics means the mathematics of biology, so that's very germane to this. This is Society for the Study of Evolution, for example, and I think there may be some others.
I'd like to turn your attention, if I can, to the scientific literature. Do you hold any positions as far as evaluating for journals or magazines whether or not scientific publications in your field should even be published in the literature?
Yes, I do that primarily for the journal Genetics, which is the official journal of the Genetic Society of America. If someone writes a paper in my area, a paper that I would understand, they may submit it to me, and then I in turn send it out to other people to review it. If the reviews are favorable, and if I agree with the reviews, then I can accept that paper and see that it's published. If the reviewers or myself or both don't like the paper, we think it's not correct or appropriate, then I reject it.
So is this in the position of your being an editor of a particular journal such as that one?
Yes, I'm an associate editor of that journal.
In that position then, as I understand it, you not only review scientific papers in your field of expertise to determine if they are or should be published, but you also decide basically what other experts to send these manuscripts or articles to so that they can give you their input as well.
Yes, it requires me to be familiar with the work of a great many people, so I feel to have a good sense of who is working in my field, and so that I can choose them as reviewers, and it helps me to evaluate their own work. So this is not unusual. It's the way the peer review system works.
Can you describe for the jury, please, some of the publications that you either act or have acted as an editor for, or assistant editor?
Well, the one we've just talked about in particular, it's the journal Genetics, the journal of the American Journal of Human Genetics. I act in a somewhat similar role, although I don't have the final authority to accept or reject. The journal Theoretical Population Biology, I am responsible for all the genetics papers in that journal, and I have the authority to accept or reject papers there. The Journal of Heredity, I am an associate editor. I get to choose reviewers and make recommendations, although I don't have the final authority.
I'd like to shift your attention, and we'll return to scientific publications in just a few moments. But what I'd like to shift your attention, if I could, Dr. Weir, to is the area of presentations and lectures. First of all, in your area of expertise of statistics and genetics, have you been invited to give various presentations in the area of statistics as well as their application in the field of genetics?
Yes, I have. I think the most important way of disseminating my research is through publications. A more immediate way is to present them orally at scientific meetings, and I am invited to attend many such meetings at a local, all the way from the local high schools, if you like, on the way up to international congresses.
And have you in the past lectured at international meetings in various locations around the world in this field?
Yes, it's one of the benefits of my job that I get to go to many countries. That's a benefit.
As far as this area of, again, invited presentations and meetings, do you organize or chair any meetings of that sort, or individual fields within meetings such as that?
Yes, I organized a very large international meeting at my university in 1987 in genetics, the second international conference in quantitative genetics. It was a major undertaking. We had over 500 people from around the world. In February of this year, I organized and chaired a meeting in this state on quantitative genetics with a lot of statistics in it. Quantitative genetics is a little different from what we're talking about here. It's the kind of genetics that go along with things that we measure, like height or grain yield or height of trees, as opposed to things that we count, like the DNA types we'll be talking about. So that was a conference I organized and chaired this year.
Are there any further conferences, whether this year or next year, at international locations that you are involved in organizing?
Well, not organizing, but I've been invited to talk on the statistical aspects of forensic DNA at an international conference in Spain in September, and again in Edinburgh in July of next year.
In your role as a professor, and you may have described this a little bit earlier, do you supervise individuals or people who are trying to obtain their own PhDs?
Yes, that's probably the most important aspect of my teaching. Teaching classes is, of course, very important, but the one-on-one teaching, working with a graduate student on a thesis project, working with that student from the concept of the idea through to final publication, it's time-consuming, it's very important, and I enjoy it very much.
As far as, and if I can return to the area of publications in your field, have you published in the scientific literature a number of articles about statistics and population genetics?
I think all of my publications are in this general area of applying statistics to genetic data. Yes.
And would this be in the peer-reviewed scientific literature?
Oh, yes.
And peer review means, again, what, please?
It's the process that we described that I am on one end of as an editor, but when I want to give my work, I have to go through the process from the other end. So I select a journal which I think would be appropriate, send the paper to the editorial board of that journal, and hope they reach the right decision.
And how many times or how many publications have you, in fact, either authored or co-authored in this field of statistics and population genetics?
It's about 100, I think.
Are there other types of things that you write that may be published in the scientific literature other than, for instance, peer-reviewed articles?
Well, there is another avenue for expressing our thoughts or giving some results, and there are letters to the editor, or commentaries or reviews. Sometimes I have been invited to write reviews of a field. For example, the population genetics issues in the forensic uses of DNA. There was a very prestigious journal, the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. The editor of that journal asked me to write a review of the issues in late 1992. So there are review articles like that, and then there are letters and other what I call commentaries. These are pieces of writing which are published at the whim of the editor, if you like, but without going through a peer review process.
Is it correct to say that the approximately 100 scientific publications that you have had through the peer review process that you personally authored, that it's that type of publication that forms the backbone of science?
Oh yes, that's the way science proceeds. Science cannot proceed. We scientists cannot reach opinions other than formulating themselves and publishing them, then reading other publications. The way that our body of knowledge, everything we know, has to be accepted by other scientists, otherwise it's lost, and it's only accepted on the basis of the published literature.
Have you been involved in the writing of any books in this area?
Yes, I'm very proud of my 1990 textbook, Genetic Data Analysis. This is a compilation of a whole host of statistical methods for handling genetic data, the type of accounting data that we'll be talking about here. It's a collection of recipes, if you like, with the underlying methods.
I have in my hand what appears to be a book with a gray cover entitled Genetic DNA Analysis. Is that the book you just referred to?
That's genetic data analysis, yes.
Have you been involved in...
Sorry, just as a clarification, you said genetic DNA analysis.
Data,
I believe the
correct.
scientist correct. Thank you.
Thought I said data.
I thought I heard DNA as well.
Have you been involved in any recent books or other publications that are, well, let me rephrase that. As far as books are concerned, have you been involved in the writing of any other books or as an editor of any of those books?
The first book I edited was involved in the statistical analysis of our DNA sequence data. I think that was 1988. I edited the proceedings from the conference we held in Raleigh. I helped edit the proceedings of a conference held at the University of California at Davis.
So irritating.
I'm currently preparing the second edition of Genetic Data Analysis. Last week I had published a set of papers in the forensic uses of DNA. The collection of papers is called Human Identification. That was a set of papers written by authors I had selected from around the world who work in this area, and included a couple of my own papers. So that was published as a special issue of a journal last week and will appear later this summer as a book.
Is that what I have in my hand now, entitled at the top, Genetica, an International Journal of Genetics?
The title of the journal is Genetica. The title of the issue is Human Identification.
And I believe you said this was a special issue of
Yes.
genetics?
That's right. That's an issue of these journals come out periodically, and they contain many articles. All the articles in that issue are the ones that I solicited, had reviewed, accepted, and got published.
Do you participate in writing any reviews of books written by others?
Oh yes, that's the other side of the coin. I'm often asked
Sad.
by journal editors to write a
Come
review
on.
of a book to
Figure
inform
out
other scientists
YouTube?
about books in this
Impossible.
area. Yes.
Is that a little bit more fun?
Yes, it gets you a chance to express your feelings without going through the need to be nice to reviewers.
Now, I'd like to shift your attention, if I can, Dr. Weir, to the actual testing in forensic casework, in cases such as this case before this jury. Have you previously consulted in any cases, that is, consulting using your expertise in the area of statistics and genetics? Have you consulted in any other cases
Oh,
other
yes.
than this case today?
Oh yes, I have.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Well, I'm frequently asked by attorneys to help them with the interpretation of the DNA evidence, with the statistical interpretation. I have worked with some prosecuting attorneys. I choose not to work with defense.
Yes, we heard this before, but not in front of the jury. So I can't fix it. It's not me, it's YouTube. YouTube, I don't know. I'm trying to think. It was like 5 months ago? I don't know. Time. It was a bit ago. YouTube decided to try using account names instead of handles in their chats. They're rolling out testing, so it hits everyone every once in a while. Nobody likes it. Nobody. But there's nothing we can do about it. Hopefully they decide to turn it off again. I don't know. Who knows? It happens to a bunch of channels. You go on a channel and boom, you're an at instead of what you used to be.
Attorneys, because I don't feel able to mount an adequate defense, in other words, an attack on these DNA matches. So the prosecuting attorney will send to me the reports in the case, the reports from the forensic scientists. When I receive those reports, they always contain a lot of information about the DNA matches, and along with some numbers. Things like the frequency of this profile is 1 in a million, that kind of statement. So it's my job to make sure that 1 in a million is an appropriate figure.
Let me stop you for a moment. When you said you consult with prosecuting attorneys, but not with defense attorneys because you feel you can't mount an attack on DNA, is that right?
Yes, I'm convinced that this methodology is sound, and I should say that I'm convinced that the statistical methodology is sound.
I know he's still in the hospital, but are you still with him or are you at home right now?
So I can't think of a way to attack that. It could be, of course, that if the analysis was done incorrectly, then it would be appropriate for me to appear for the defense.
Did you describe for us approximately how many cases that you've acted as a consultant in where you've advised attorneys about this type of technology and their specific results?
I'm not sure of the number, but I have given testimony in, I think, 16 cases before today.
Can you tell us what states those have involved, if it has been more than your home state?
Yes, that's another opportunity to travel, of course. I've been in this state and I've been in this city giving testimony. I've been in the states of Oregon and Washington, Illinois, Pennsylvania, Virginia, North and South Carolina, Florida.
And in those instances, did you in fact, or were you allowed to give opinions
I know somebody in
about whether or not
Florida.
frequency data in, for instance,
I know somebody in Florida. He's very famous. He has his own YouTube channel. Yep, with hundreds of thousands of subscribers. Yep, his name is Bill. Bill, where are you, Bill? I spoke to him yesterday. He built a birdhouse, and it was excellent. It was a beautiful, beautiful birdhouse.
DNA typing cases was presented appropriately?
Yes.
As far as DNA typing itself, can you describe for the jury, please, how is it you're familiar with, for instance, the technologies that have been previously testified to in this case, including both the RFLP typing technique and the technique that uses PCR as well?
We're talking about the technologies or the specifics of the case?
The technologies.
Well, the technologies really go back to my days in a graduate school. I've spent my career developing statistical methods for genetic data. Now, up until the early 80s, the types of genetic data we had were different to some extent from these DNA types. That doesn't really matter. All that is necessary in the first place for our analyses is that we talk about things, genetic entities, which are transmitted from parent to child, and they obey all the laws of genetics. These laws are fairly simple, as it turns out, but they can still lead to a very complex situation. So the theories I've been working on apply to blood groups or eye color or anything that we could count, and any discrete character which we could say, yes, the person has the character, or no, the person does not have the character. So these methods were in place, and it turned out in the late 80s, when we had the DNA types introduced to the forensic arena, we already had the methods pretty much in place to handle that kind of data.
In other words, methods were being developed even before DNA typing was available to evaluate characteristics that were transmitted from parents to children. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
Was that using methods such as protein typing or protein electrophoresis?
Yes, the time I was a postdoc in Davis,
I know a
the
ton
data
of
I was
them,
looking at were the
Josh.
protein
Working in
electrophoretic
IT for so many
variants.
years.
DNA then came about in terms of its technology being available. Is that right?
The DNA markers, yes.
And these technologies, well, these DNA typing technologies then allowed you and other experts in your field then to look at the types of information or data that they were able to provide science as well. Is that right?
Right.
You described developing some methods. Was this in your work as a scientist? You developed some statistical methods to look at this type of information?
That's correct, yes.
Does that constitute a portion, and perhaps you can tell us what, how much of that portion of the approximately 100 scientific publications that you've had published?
I think all of my publications have to do with the interpretation of genetic data.
As far as your publications, do they include articles about DNA typing results in forensics, that is, in cases like this case in this courtroom?
Yes, I think since about 1990, when I became involved in this area, I've been working on appropriate methods, and my publication started, I believe, 1991, and there's been about a dozen, I think, peer-reviewed papers laying out statistical methods and the resulting analyses of data for the forensic DNA markers.
Can you describe for the jury, please, of, approximately a dozen or so of your publications, what do they generally deal with as far as forensic cases?
Well, the issues have changed over time, as they always do in science. At the beginning, the issue of some doubt was, can we form the frequency of a profile by multiplying together a series of numbers? Is this so-called product rule an appropriate thing to do? Well, it is appropriate if all these bits of information are independent of each other, if they really are telling us a series of different things. So we needed to address at the early stage whether or not these DNA profile components were in fact independent. So we set up some tests to see if the data supported that independence.
In a nutshell, can you describe what you mean when you use the term, we looked at independence and whether or not we could use the product rule?
Well, it's very simple. It's embarrassing how simple it really is in concepts. The question is, we have at a single probe or a single locus two pieces of information. That might be a DQ alpha 1.1 and 1.2, two types that we see. We would like to know how often those two types occur together in the same person. One way would be just to take a sample of people and see how many of them have that, and that's what we do. The other way, which we'll need to use in the next step, is to say, well, a good estimate of that number is the number of people who have a 1.1 times the number who have a 1.2. So these are two independent bits, so they sort of exist in their own right. This one has a frequency of 10%, this one has a frequency of, say, 5%, and we can multiply them together. Now, the testing we do, it's very simple. We just go and get a sample of people and say, how many people have the two types? How many would we expect have the two types if they're independent? And we compare what we observe and what we expect, and they won't be exactly the same numbers being what they are, but providing they're not too far apart, then we'll say it looks like the data are consistent with independence.
Is that the type of work you do or the type of analysis you perform when you're asked to look at an individual case?
Yes, I always have to do that, because in the cases there is always going to come a point where some numbers are multiplied together to end up with astonishing looking numbers. So I want to make sure that this multiplication process is valid in that case.
Or if you're performing on research for purposes of one of your scientific publications, is this the same type of information you look at that leads ultimately to your publishing an article?
Well, my articles have dealt with sort of two aspects. One with setting up the tests, trying to make up some rules by which the observed and expected numbers could differ and us not be worried. So it's a little more complicated, but the idea is simple. We have to decide how close do they have to be for us to be comfortable. So that's the statistical methodology, that's the theory. So we develop and make sure those tests behave nicely. Then the second aspect is to apply them to some sets of data.
Now, I'd like to shift your attention, if I could, Dr. Weir, to Cellmark Diagnostics. Are you familiar with that laboratory?
Yes, I am.
And could you describe for the jury how is it that you are familiar with Cellmark?
Well, I've met the people from Cellmark, Dr. Cotton and some of her colleagues over the past several years at scientific meetings. I think it must have been 1991, when I was developing the test for independence, I was in touch with Dr. Cotton, and I'm not sure now whose idea it was, but I guess together we came up with the idea that I should examine their databases. So I discussed with Dr. Cotton and Dr. Lisa Foreman at Cellmark details of their database, and they sent me a computer disk which was just the DNA types of some hundreds of people that they had collected and typed. I analyzed the data, found...
Objection.
Well, excuse me, Your Honor. I think the objection was inappropriate.
Sustained.
As far as just in general at this point, your relationship with Cellmark Diagnostics, is it in any formal manner? Is there any formal relationship?
At this point, it's extremely formal. My university has a contract with Cellmark to analyze their data.
And when you say analyze their data, could you tell us a little bit more about what that means?
That the contract calls specifically for testing for independence in their databases.
As a result of your relationship with Cellmark in terms of looking at their data, you've described how they share information with you, is that right?
Yes.
And I believe you described they shared a disk with one or more of their databases?
The way of transmitting the data is on a computer disk. The list of data is too extensive for me to have to type it into a computer.
That's one way of their providing it to you?
Yes.
And is that, in fact, the most convenient way for your purposes?
Well, it's the only accurate way. They also give me a computer printout, and I suppose I could type it in, but there'd be a considerable chance of making an error if I did that.
What databases have they provided to you for your opportunity to examine them?
Several. In 1991, they provided what was their current forensic databases, consisting of people classified as Caucasian, African American, or Hispanic. There was just the African American and Caucasian first. The Hispanic came a little later. Last year, they sent me further databases they had collected through their paternity testing program. Each paternity case, of course, involves three people: a mother, a child, and an alleged father. So there's a lot of information they get in the course of their paternity business. And their paternity databases are classified according to Caucasian and African American. They've also sent me their PCR databases. Oh, excuse me, the first ones I described with the RFLP, and have also sent me PCR databases with the express request I test them for independence.
When you stated that you received in 1991 databases for, I believe, Caucasian and African Americans, and then later received Hispanic database material from Cellmark,
Yes.
is there a title that we can apply with a year perhaps to that set of 3 databases?
Well, I've come to call those the 92 databases, the 1992.
I don't know if
And
it would blow their mind. When did that movie? Crud! I can't even remember the movie. The ball went down, and Tom Cruise was accused of murder. Oh my gosh! In the future, like Tom Cruise is going to murder someone. Minority Report. So in that movie, they talked to their house. You know, he walked in and asked, turn on the lights, and that was around 95, wasn't it? Or was that later than 95? But I think like the Jetsons, they talked to their house, didn't they? Talked to their house. So I think that, you know, they knew it was coming. We all knew ChatGPT was coming, and it's not in the house yet, but I'm sure it will be soon. You know, it will be soon. We have Echo in the house, and that sucks.
Results of my analyses on the Caucasian and African American were published
gotta
in a
go.
peer-reviewed paper.
I'll be back real soon, guys.
In 1992 in the American Journal of Human Genetics.
All right. Perhaps you can describe that a little bit more fully. You ended up writing a scientific publication as a result of your looking at the 92 databases from Cellmark?
That's right, yes.
And is that one of the publications that is one of the approximately 100 that you've had published in the peer-reviewed scientific literature?
That's right.
Now, you also, and that was an RFLP database, is that right?
That was RFLP, yes.
You also described receiving in 1994 additional databases from paternity cases, is that right?
Yes, also RFLP, but just data a little more extensive and from a different source.
Can we appropriately refer to that as the 94 Cellmark databases?
Yes, I would like to do that.
And then I believe you also said that you received, and I'm not sure you gave the year, PCR databases from Cellmark.
Yes, the PCR I also received last year, 94.
Now, you are familiar, are you not, with Cellmark's methods for calculating population frequencies in cases such as this one?
Yes, I am.
How are you familiar with that?
Because they've told me. I have held discussions with them going back to 1991, and then I've acted as an expert witness in some cases where their results were presented in court. I think the first one of those was in 1991. It was a case in this city.
As far as these databases that you've described, you've already used the concept and you've described independence and use of the product rule. Is that important to be able to use a database?
Oh, yes, it's essential.
Why?
The problem we face is to attach some kind of a number to a DNA profile. We are talking about an event which is so rare that we generally haven't seen it before. And I'm talking about the case, for example, when there's a DNA profile based on, say, 6 or 7 RFLP probes. When we have that many probes involved, there are so many possibilities, so many permutations of the types of the 6 or 7 probes. There are so many different profiles out there in the world that we can't expect to ever see them all. We certainly have never seen the matching one before in any specific case. But we have a problem. We would like to attach a number to that. We would like to say this is a very rare profile, and by the way, that means it occurs only once in 1,000,000 people, or whatever the number is. We haven't observed 1,000,000 people, so we have a problem. We solve the problem by thinking a little more clearly and saying, well, this profile, this single profile which has been declared to match, actually consists of several components. If it's 6 probes, each with 2 bands, I'm talking RFLPs, there are really 12 bits to the profile. It's like a 12-point pattern. Each of those points, we have a good idea of how frequently they occur in the population based on these databases. A database of a few hundred is perfectly adequate to estimate the frequency of one of the points. And what we find, as a good rule of thumb, each one of these points occurs about 10%. In about 10% of the population. Their frequencies are about 10%.
That's a rough estimate?
That's rough. It's often less than that, occasionally more, but it's a nice convenient figure to think of. 10% is the chance of getting one of these 12 or 14, whatever it is, points. But we have a profile of the whole 12. We want a number for the set of 12, and it's not an amazing thing. We're going to multiply those 12 frequencies together. And suddenly we've gone from something we can understand very easily.
1 out of 10?
1 out of 10. Every 10 people we come across, there'll be a couple of copies of any one of these bands, any one of the specific bands. But now we're asking, how often does the whole package come together? And it's kind of embarrassing. We suddenly end up with numbers that we find very hard to understand. If you multiply 10 by itself 12 times, you've got 12 zeros there. And we don't have a very good experience in anything with that, well, apart from the national debt, I guess, any numbers this big. So we have gone, now, it's an important number, obviously, and it depends crucially on being able to multiply.
If this independence of these different characteristics didn't exist, would that mean then that the number may not be accurate? The estimate may not be accurate?
The estimate by multiplying really wouldn't have any meaning, yes.
Is that the type of examination that you have developed tests for, statistical tests, to determine if this independence exists?
That's right.
Is it also the case that you use tests, that is scientific and mathematical tests, that have been developed by others for this type of analysis?
Oh yes, I don't insist on doing it all myself. Some of the tests that I've used in this case, for example, the tests are very old. They go back to a very famous statistician called R.A. Fisher, writing in the 1930s. The tests he devised were good, but they were very difficult to implement. And another very prominent statistician in this country, Dr. Elizabeth Thompson, gave us, in essence, a way of doing the test on a computer, specifically for these databases.
Now, you mentioned that you have actually had published, that is a scientific publication, about the 1992 databases used by Cellmark.
That's right.
What did that publication involve? Can you capsulize or give us a summary of that?
Well, it was once again, it was very simple. I took the two databases I had at that time, and I think there were 4 RFLP probes at that time. Cellmark had collected types from 200 or 300 African Americans and 200 or 300 Caucasians.
Google.
So we had those databases, and then I examined the question: does each pair of bands at a probe, does that occur as often in people in the databases as I would expect under the assumption of independence? And then that's one probe. Then I went to 2 probes. When I look at 2 probes, each with can't work my fingers here. We've got 2 probes, one with 2 bands, the other one with 2 bands. Is a band at this probe, is it independent of a band at that probe? Because we're going to end up multiplying the whole 4 together. So I did some tests. I conducted tests that we had published previously. They weren't Dr. Thompson's tests. I had applied tests we had published about previously, applied them to the data and presented the results.
Were you able to reach any conclusions from this analysis that you published in the scientific literature?
Yes, the conclusions were that by and large Cellmark's databases were consistent with independence.
And by consistent with independence, meaning that the results obtained from each of these probes could in fact be multiplied together,
That's right.
producing what I think you've referred to as a profile?
Yes, I refer to the collection of bands as a profile, yes.
All right, we'll return to that in a little bit. But what I'd like to ask you about now, Dr. Weir, is have you had any previous experience? Let me rephrase that. You're familiar with the California Department of Justice, is that right?
Yes.
And the fact that they perform DNA typing work in their DNA laboratory.
Yes, in a general sense, yes.
All right. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with the Department of Justice? And I'm referring to the California Department of Justice DNA laboratory.
Well, over the last 6 months, I've had several telephone conversations with Mr. Gary Sims and obtained from him a fairly good understanding of how it is that DOJ attaches numbers to their matching profiles.
Is there any, and you're familiar with the fact that the Federal Bureau of Investigation in Washington, D.C. also has a DNA laboratory, correct?
Yes, I've been working with Dr. Badoli from the FBI since the end of 1989.
To what extent, if any, does the Department of Justice in California rely on work previously done by the FBI? And I'm only referring right now to the area of population frequencies.
Oh, they rely, it's totally, all the numbers that DOJ generates in a case are based on data collected by the FBI.
We'll return to this case a little bit later, as I mentioned, but for purposes of this question, to your knowledge, was the FBI or were the FBI databases used by DOJ in calculating their frequencies of results in this case?
Oh, yes.
Now, you've mentioned the FBI. What type of relationship or working relationship, can you tell us a little bit more about that, have you had with them?
It's been a very close and harmonious relationship since the end of 1989. Dr. Badoli asked me to work with him in examining their databases. So he once again explained the procedures that they used to construct their databases. Theirs was a little different from Cellmark's. They had a somewhat wider base people at that time. They had blood, they had DNA collected from our blood banks around the country, and constructed a database, just a listing of the profiles of some hundreds of people. Dr. Badoli provided me with those databases. Those were 3 racial groups, Caucasian, African American, and Hispanic, and further subdivided into geographic region of Florida, California, and Texas. He provided me with those data. I performed some different tests on those because the FBI has a different procedure from Cellmark of deciding when bands match, for example. So I analyzed those data with Dr. Badoli's cooperation and published those results in a paper published in 1992 in the journal Genetics.
We'll return to that in just a second. But this process of obtaining databases from the FBI, was that done in a similar fashion to when the databases were provided to you by Cellmark?
That's right. I received a set of discs in the mail, yes.
And you performed various tests on these databases?
Yes, I did.
And that led to your publication, and I'm sorry, what year was it that you reviewed, that is, authored a scientific publication about the FBI's databases?
The paper was published in 1992. It went through several revisions, if you like. It was written, actually, I believe, early in 1991.
Just to be clear, both the publication that you authored about Cellmark as well as the 1992 publication about the FBI, did those relate to RFLP data only?
Oh, yes, they did.
As far as your review of the FBI's databases, can you give us again a brief summary of your findings?
Yes, I found what I expected to find, and I think what any population geneticist would expect to find. The databases were consistent with the various components of these DNA profiles all being independent, one from another.
Incidentally, have there been publications by other scientists about the FBI's databases as well?
Oh, there have been several other people who perform a similar role to myself. Dr. Chakraborty, for example. Should I spell that?
I think so, yes.
Chakraborty, from the University of Texas, has performed even more extensive analyses than I have.
Were his conclusions approximately the same or different, or what?
Objection. No proper foundation.
Sustain.
Have you in fact read the particular publication by Dr. Chakraborty?
I certainly have.
And did it contain conclusions and opinions?
Yes, it did.
And did you agree with those?
I did.
Now, as far as, and I'd like to take you into individual casework, such as this case, have you, before this case, been involved in evaluating this data or population frequency information of other laboratories? And actually, let me rephrase that if I may. I think that's confusing. As far as you're looking at databases from both the FBI and Cellmark, have you looked at other laboratories' databases?
Yes, a variety of both private and state labs.
Can you describe those, please?
Well, we've had the private Cellmark mentioned. Also, it's a Life Codes, it's a private company. Genetic Design, which is in North Carolina, and a Roche Biomedical, private companies. State agencies, the State Bureau of Investigation in North Carolina, the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division, crime labs in 2 counties in Florida, crime labs in Minnesota, Oregon, Toronto, Australia, New Zealand, and the United Kingdom.
So in terms of looking at a database, that's something that you've had experience with on many occasions.
Yes, it is.
Turning your attention now to this individual case, and you've spoken already of having conversations with, I believe, Robin Cotton and Gary Sims about this case, is that right?
That's right.
Were you also provided written material?
Yes, I believe I've received all their written reports, at least the ones containing frequency estimates.
These would be reports from Cellmark in this case?
Yes,
Reports from the DOJ or the Department of Justice in this case?
that's right.
Did you also receive any raw data? And by raw data, I mean something other than a formal written report.
Well, I already had the databases that both labs use, the Cellmark's own databases, the FBI's databases that DOJ uses for RFLPs. And then, as part of their reports, I received information on the detailed fragment lengths, the sort of the nuts and bolts of the matching profiles.
When you say fragment lengths, you're referring to, and you've used the term nuts and bolts, are these the actual approximate sizings of each of these bands that the jury has seen from the x-rays that we looked at some weeks ago?
Yeah, that's right. Each of those bands has a number attached to it, like 1369, the estimated fragment length. So I got all those numbers.
Were you also provided with each laboratory's estimate of the approximate frequency, or approximately how often characteristics found in the various items of evidence in this case are found in various populations?
Yes, I received all those reports.
Were you also provided with the data about the results of PCR testing in this case as well?
Yes,
And that included the marker, and I think you've already given a short example of DQ alpha.
that's right.
polymarker,
Yes.
and that consists of more than one genetic marker, is that right?
It's a set of 5 markers, yes.
And also, were you given the actual results, the typing results, from use of the marker D1S80?
I was.
From a statistical standpoint or a population frequency standpoint, when you make determinations in an individual case, do you use the actual types reported by the DNA analyst or the laboratory that's involved?
Oh, I must do, yes.
In other words, do you ask for and want to look at, for instance, the x-rays or the photographs of typing strips so that you can evaluate what the types are that are shown?
No, I'm not qualified to do that. I have to start with the information written down, the fragment length or the DQ alpha type from the strip. I'm not qualified to do the determination myself. I must accept what the forensic scientist says they found.
In other words, you rely on the expertise and experience and training of the DNA analyst to determine what types and what matches exist,
That's right.
or what exclusions exist.
That's right.
As far as an exclusion, do you have any interest or can you assign any frequency to an exclusion?
No, an exclusion is an exclusion, and we don't need to attach a number.
As far as your work in this case, did you also have, and you've described a little bit about discussions with Gary Sims and Robin Cotton, did you have discussions when you had a question about a particular result or a database used and so forth?
Oh, I did that frequently, yes.
If there was something that you couldn't determine from the actual materials you were provided, did you have one of these telephone or in-person contacts?
Yes, I certainly did.
As far as this case is concerned, did you then perform certain calculations and look at databases and results?
I did.
Ultimately, did you reach certain opinions or conclusions about various factors or various areas of the frequencies that are involved in this case?
Well, I don't have opinions. I have estimated the frequencies of all the matching profiles in this case.
As far as population frequency data, and let's take a forensic case just like this one, when a number is presented in court, whether that's a number of 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 10 million or whatever, is that a precise number?
No.
What is it?
It's our attempt to attach some meaning to the match. The 1 in 10 will obviously be more precise than the 1 in 10 million. We are attempting a very difficult task to attach a number to a very rare event. An argument could be made that maybe we should stop doing that for 7 RFLPs or 11 RFLPs. If we have a match with 22 fragments all lining up, it's inconceivable that we could come up with a number that would make any sense, and meaning that we just have no experience of such an enormous number. So, but the other thing is that we will never know for sure how many people have any particular profile. We expect that by the time we get to 7 RFLP profiles, there'll be very few, if any, other people in the world with that type, but we'll never know that. We can't type everybody in the world. We can't even count all the people in Los Angeles. It's just not possible. We have to deal with estimates, and our estimates have to be based on the information we have available to us. And that means we have to go out and type as many people as possible. And just the practicalities of that means that we'll be talking about a few hundred or a few thousand people who will be typed. Now, Cellmark in 1992 has a Caucasian database of, I don't know, 300 people, and you could base an estimate on that. And we know if we had a different database of 300 people, even collected under the same conditions, we would get a different answer, because the answers we get are estimates of the true frequency, whatever that is, which is not known, and we never will know it. So we have to be very sure to interpret these estimates as simply that. They are good estimates of a quantity which we will never know for sure.
As far as the databases used in this case, did you in fact look at those databases and perform some of the tests that you've described earlier?
I did.
With what purpose in mind? Why did you do that?
Just to make sure that it was legitimate to multiply the numbers together to end up with the profile frequencies.
Did you look at the Cellmark databases that were used in this case by Cellmark?
I did.
Did you also look at the additional database that you received from Cellmark for 1994?
I did.
As far as the data used by the Department of Justice, can you tell us what databases you looked at there? And I'm only talking about RFLP at the moment.
Yeah, the RFLP databases are collected by the FBI. The FBI's databases have been expanded by the addition of additional probes over time. When I wrote my 1992 paper, I think there were 5 probes at that time, and now there are 7 in the database. So the databases are being expanded. So I examined the current version, the databases I received from the FBI this year, and used them, examined the databases, checked for independence, and applied them to the profiles in this case.
As far as the PCR databases, and let's refer to those, and if you would just describe again as you did with regard to the RFLP, did you test those databases as used by the laboratories, in this case, Cellmark and Department of Justice also?
Yes, Cellmark has their own PCR databases, and they asked me the summer of 1994 to analyse them, which I did. And the DOJ's story is a little more complicated. They rely on several different sources of information about PCR types. They don't generate their own databases. I chose to examine an FBI database for PCR types. The database of the FBI has been described in publications by the FBI, which I've reviewed, but from my perspective, more importantly, I've examined that database myself. It contains the whole 7 PCR types, that's DQ alpha, D1S80, and the 5 polymarkers, the whole 7 loci typed on the same people, so that I could do tests for independence of those types.
Does it make any difference in referring to these PCR markers that you looked at a different database than Cellmark used to report their frequencies from the PCR results in this case?
Well, the difference is that I'll get a different number, just as Cellmark will get a different number if they added a single person to the database tomorrow. Every database gives its characteristic number. What we have found in this whole business over the last 5 years, once you start getting several loci, several probes, we can reach conclusions that a matching profile is rare, no matter which database we use. It sounds kind of strange at first sight that we should get numbers from different racial backgrounds, which are, although they're different, they're not often wildly different. So we get differences between racial groups, between different labs, between databases collected in different years. They're all different numbers. They're all addressing the same issue. And I don't think it matters, providing we keep in mind that what we're trying to do is to establish whether or not a matching profile is rare.
As far as these tests that you performed on the various databases that you've just described, is there a way that you can summarize the results? And I'm talking about your examination of the databases.
Well, there's a general statement I would make that by and large the components of the DNA profiles in this case are independent. There are exceptions. Occasionally I will find some evidence of an apparent association, some lack of independence between parts of some of the profiles.
When you've used the term association, what's that mean?
Or association, it refers to the lack of independence. If the piece of DNA a person receives from one parent is somehow associated with that from the other parent, meaning that if I tell you this person has a 1.2 DQ alpha, if that gives you any information at all about the other type, if that makes it more likely that the other one is a 1.4, then we have associated fragments. Now, we wouldn't expect that to be the case in these DNA markers, which as far as we know don't have any effect on us. They don't affect our health or well-being. So we expect them to be independent. We don't expect people to marry based on their DNA type, so we don't expect the 2 parents to have associated types, and we don't expect them to transmit associated types to their children. So when we get a database, we expect to find that the 2 bits are independent. And by and large, that's what we find. Not 100% of the time. Occasionally we find that a particular pair of types will occur more often than we expect. Sometimes it'll occur less often. And when I say more often, I mean statistically significantly more often.
Now, was that the case as far as the conclusions that you've just described, where you've described sometimes you see this association? Was that the case in your analysis of the databases used in this case?
It happens occasionally. Roughly speaking, it happens about 5% of the time. When I do a test, I will find an apparent departure from independence.
What does that mean? What steps do you take?
Well, I don't think it means anything. It's the nature of what we do. When we do a test, when we look for independence, we don't know the answer. We don't know if they're independent or not. We don't know for sure. We're going to go through a procedure. We're going to do a test, as I described, comparing observed and expected, and end up making a statement. Before we even do it, we know there's a chance that we're going to make a wrong call. We devise our tests to make that chance of an error small. And for this particular kind of error, saying there's an association when there really isn't, but saying there is, we devise things to make sure that we'll have an error which is small, and we choose the small number of 5%. So we do what is called a 5% test. It sounds like we're making life hard for ourselves, but that's the way it is. We do a procedure. Most of the time it's fine. 5% of the time it says, oh, there is an association here. And we don't know, when we look at that, we don't know if that's the 5%, the 1 in 20 that we would expect, or if it's something really biological going on, and these 2 bits of DNA really have an affinity one for the other, and they're going to be transmitted together. We just don't know by looking. So we don't have a problem. We just say, here are 2 bits of DNA which are associated. They're not telling us 2 bits of information. We shouldn't pretend we have 2 matches, 1 at each band. We've sort of got somewhere between 1 and 2, so I choose to just use 1 of those 2 bands. I'm going to throw away the other band for my calculations, because I can't be sure that it's another bit of information, so I'll just use 1 of them.
In this particular case, did you perform perform a calculation process on various pieces of evidence?
I did.
In doing that, did you use this approach that you just described, that when you occasionally found this association, you would eliminate one of those pieces of information to make sure you weren't overstating basically how frequent or approximately how frequent a match may be?
I did, yes.
Was the court going to...
Objection, I believe we're overstating how rare it is.
Was the court going to take a break at some point?
4:30.
Very good. By not considering a particular fragment or a particular allele, as that term has been used in this court, would that be an example of using a very conservative approach to making a frequency estimate?
Yes, it's conservative in that by, in essence, discarding, throwing away one of those matching items, we are not figuring that into the calculation, so the frequency looks to be less rare.
When you discard or not use that one band, you're not reaching the conclusion, are you, that those items or bands are actually associated, are you?
No, it's my feeling that they're not. I don't know of a biological reason why they would be, but I don't know what the reason is. It might be just that this particular set of 300 people in this database happen to have this particular pair of alleles more often than not. I don't attach much meaning to it, but nor can I discount that finding, nor can I ignore that finding.
The calculations that you made in this case, based on the various fragment lengths if the test was RFLP, or the different alleles if the test was PCR in origin, were those calculations made based on methods that you've developed?
Yes.
Were they also based on methods that others have developed as well?
Yes.
As far as the methods you used, as well as the methods developed by others, have they been published in the scientific literature?
All the methods have been published by myself and others over a long period of time, yes.
In this calculation process, are there a series of steps that are involved?
Yes.
Are there places along the calculation process where you have to make decisions about things?
Oh, well, there are. For example, when we find associations, we have to decide what to do, and I've described what I do as discard one of those bands.
Are there other examples of decisions that need to be made along this process of calculating a profile frequency or calculating the frequency of matching characteristics?
Well, there are. Through the whole chain of things, right from the time when the forensic scientist has to declare a match up until the final answer comes, there are a series. So there's the matching criterion, and that's really beyond my expertise. I'm sure you've had it described, but the labs have a rule by which they'll say two RFLP fragments are close enough together that they match. They won't be exactly the same length, but they'll be so close that they look to be matching. And now, so the question is, I said that these types occur 10% of the time. That's oversimplifying it a little bit. Supposing we had a fragment length 1,369 bases, and we went out and looked at 1,000 people and looked at all their bands, chances are we won't see any band of 1,369. The possible range of band lengths is so enormous. There are so many thousands of different types. We won't see them all. So what we do is we'll say, well, how many times do the bands close to that one occur in the database? How many, Selmark says, how many occur in a floating bin around that database? So we have it's a decision on how to attach a frequency. There are other ways of doing it. That's what I'm trying to say. There are other ways. This is a conservative procedure.
In other words, there isn't simply one method that necessarily needs to be followed by every laboratory.
No, there's not one method for doing most things in science.
Are there other steps along the way wherein you, for instance, in your own calculation method, have to make decisions? And I'm referring to the approach.
I'm drawing a blank for the moment.
All right. Your Honor, if we could take a break at this time, perhaps the witness's memory will be no longer blank about my question.
All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a brief recess at this time. Please remember all my admonitions to you. Don't discuss the case amongst yourselves, form any opinions, allow anybody to communicate with you, or conduct any deliberations. And we'll be in recess for about 15 minutes. All right, Doctor, you can step down. Back on the record in the Simpson matter, all parties are again present. Deputy McNair, let's have the jurors, please. Where would you resume the witness stand, please? And Mr. Clark, you may conclude your direct examination.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You're welcome.
Dr. Weir, I think we had been discussing the fact that in this case you also calculated frequency estimates for the various items of evidence that matched a particular individual. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
Did you also calculate frequencies, that is, approximations of how often certain characteristics that were found in mixtures occur in populations?
Yes, I did.
As a result of the examinations in this case of not only the databases that you described earlier, but also the actual pieces of evidence and the frequencies attached to those pieces of evidence that matched or were consistent with someone, did you describe those in your report as far as the same idea of approximately 1 n?
Yes, that's a fairly convenient way of writing the numbers. We could do it one of two ways. We could say the frequency is 0.000 and so on, or we could say it's 1 in a million. It's a little easier to think about the 1 in a million than write down as decimal point 5 zeros and a 1.
In other words, it's a little easier in terms of understanding the math to use the term 1 n instead of, as you said, 0.0235 or whatever combination that may be involved.
It's a little easier to keep track of things. We understand the word million. It's hard for our eyes to distinguish 5 zeros in a row from 6 zeros. It's that kind of thing I'm talking about.
Now, in your calculation of frequencies, when you use the methods that you have described, would your frequencies be the same as, for instance, as described on these boards by Cellmark or DOJ for various pieces of evidence?
They're not exactly the same, no.
Why?
Well, for three reasons. The first one is I sometimes use different databases. And as we know, as we expect, different databases will give different answers. The second one is, along with my estimate, I attach some measure of confidence in that estimate. As I've said already, ultimately the answers we come up with are based on a few hundred people. That's just the way it is. It's appropriate, but that's the way it is. A different set of people will give us a different answer. So as a statistician, I need to say, here is my answer, and this is how good I think the answer is. Now, we meet this concept every day. We see in the newspaper 47% of the people support the president on some issue, plus or minus 3 percentage points. So the president feels good because he's got half the people, and the opposition feels good because they've only got 44. It gives everybody room to feel good. But when we see the 47, we stick with that number, but we know whatever the true number is, it's probably going to be in this range of plus or minus 3 percentage points. And it's the plus or minus 3, which, if you think about it, is just about as important as the 47%. One without the other is only giving some of the stories. The plus or minus is an important concept. In statistics, we call that a range from the 47 minus 3 to give 44% up to the 47 plus 3 to give 50%. That range of 44 to 50, it's a confidence limit, confidence interval, excuse me. It is an interval with which we have a certain confidence that it includes the true answer. Well, it's the same thing here. Our measure of confidence, our confidence interval is going to depend on the data. It's going to reflect the size of the database. If we typed everybody there was, the confidence limit interval would shrink to nothing, and the answer we have would be the true one. The fewer people we type, the wider becomes this confidence limit. And in essence, the less confidence we have in any specific number in that range. Now, the public opinion polls are generally based on about 1,000 people, 1,200, something like that, to give the plus or minus 3 percentage points. But they apply to a single question: do you support the president? Yes or no, or yes, no, or maybe. It's a single question. what we have here is it's compound, isn't it? Because the profile has, say, 12 bits to it. Each of the bits separately we could do a plus or minus, and on the databases we'd get about the same thing, plus or minus 1 or 2 percentage points. When I say the frequency of a piece is 10%, based on a few hundred people, that will be about somewhere in the range 9 to 11%, maybe 8 to 12, but it'll be very close to 10%. Each of those 10% numbers I have a fairly good precision on, but when I start multiplying them together, my precision kind of dies off. And it's kind of dramatic. It's not going to be 3% anymore. It's going to be about 50%. So when anybody says an estimate of a profile is about 1 in a million, attached to that 1 in a million is a statement, or it could be as low as 500,000. And now the actual numbers vary according to the situation, but a good rule of thumb is that I would divide the original number by 2, and then that division, that smaller number, which is actually a higher frequency, it's a more conservative number, that's sort of giving me, it's a 99% confidence limit. So I do the estimates as did the other people, and I would attach to them a 99% confidence limit. It's just a reflection of the fact that our answer is based on a relatively small number of people.
Is that a step you take to make sure, at least to the extent you can, that you're not overstating the rarity of something?
That's right, yes.
Is there another step or another procedure that you use?
There is another step which even further reduces the numbers that we have prepared, and this is a more recent step. It's been developed over the last couple of years by myself and some other scientists in both this country and in England, and it has to do with a somewhat vexing problem in theory. Here we have a crime committed in a certain area, and we're going to attach to the evidentiary items a number based on data collected from people all over the country. What relevance does that, like the FBI's data, what relevance does the FBI's data from the whole United States, or at least from 3 different states, have to Los Angeles County? Well, I think it has a lot of relevance because I think these frequencies do not vary very much. But the point has been raised, well, what if the relevant population here is very different as far as its DNA frequencies go? Maybe people in this area, or people who might be considered as potential perpetrators for any crime, maybe that set of people has this profile very commonly. Maybe the profile that's found to match occurs once in 100 of these people. It might occur once in a million over the whole country, but that would be unfair, the argument goes, to give the country-wide figure when we should be talking about the specific area of the crime. So the issue is, do we have groups within the population? That's called population structuring. Well, we do, of course. We know that in the US Caucasian population, we have people whose backgrounds are from different European countries. We've got people of Italian descent, we've got people of Irish descent, and so forth. Just to make sort of an obvious example, and to some extent at least, people with those backgrounds marry people they know and maybe have similar backgrounds. So we may, to some extent, have preserved those differences that occurred in the European countries. They may still be here. That's the objection that has been, that's the point that's been raised. Well, it sounds like a valid point. How can we accommodate it? Well, in population genetics, we have a theory which enables us to measure the amounts of difference amongst these groups. And it enables us to modify our answers. It enables me, for example, to take the band frequencies from the whole country and in essence modify them. It makes them a little bit more frequent to account for the possibility that in any one group the frequencies are a bit higher than the nationwide average. I have published on that, as have other people. So we have done an accommodation for the possibility of population structuring. When I do that, it reduces the number a little bit further.
Is this an example of another step that you take to make sure that you don't overstate the rarity of matching characteristics?
That's the intention, yes.
In a criminal case, does that then benefit a defendant if there's been instances of matches between evidence and a defendant?
That's right.
Or matches between any person who may be connected with it?
In essence, it downgrades the weight to be attached to any matching evidence, yes. It downgrades the number, excuse me.
And in fact, you calculated frequencies for these various pieces of evidence that appeared to be from one person.
That's right.
I believe you also described the fact that you calculated approximate frequencies for what were mixtures of samples. Is that right?
That's right.
Without getting in, well, let me rephrase that. The method that you used to calculate these approximate frequencies for mixtures, what does that number reveal to us? What does it tell us?
It tells us what's the frequency, how likely it is, what's the probability, or what's the chance of getting this mixed stain. There are some mixtures which, instead of having 2 bands or 2 types of the locus, have 3 or 4. Obviously, there was more than one contributor. So how likely it is that we get such a mixture if, in fact, there were 2 contributors? Or how likely would we get this mixture if there were 3 contributors? It's not different in concept at all to the single stains. We have a single stain with 2 bands, and we ask the question, how likely is it that we get those 2 bands in the one person for a single stain, or in 2 or 3 people for a mixed stain?
So for a mixed stain, you would calculate estimates of how often these combinations of markers would be found in, for instance, if, for instance, 2 people were part of that stain.
That's right.
And you did the same if 3 people were part of that stain? Or,
That's right.
Or 3 different people contributed to the results that were ultimately obtained?
If the mixture, the mixed stain, represents the DNA left by 2 or 3 people, yes.
The method that you use to calculate that, and I'm just referring to the mixtures now, has
Yes.
that been published in the scientific literature?
Oh, yes.
All right. Did you, in fact, then make these? And let's start with instances in which there were mixtures.
All right.
And you described the fact that you made certain calculations.
All right.
With the court's permission, I would like to use the first board of the Bundy crime scene results. And also with the court's permission, I intend to elicit from the witness certain frequencies. It was my intent to simply write them in as opposed to the witness going back and forth, if that's acceptable.
All right. With the assumptions
Yes, yes.
clearly stated.
Now, Dr. Weir, I'd like to, if I can, I don't know if you can see, can you see that board?
No, I have a small version. Should I look at that?
Actually, well, yes, if you have that available.
This is the Bundy crime scene.
Yes. You have before you what appear to be legal size or larger Xerox copies of basically what's the board before the jury at this time?
Maybe I should check.
Which, for the record, Your Honor, is People's Exhibit 259.
All right, Mr. Neufeld, do you want to examine that for a moment?
Thank you.
Actually, yeah, I would like one if you could also provide a copy to the defense.
Do you have any other copies of that?
Not with me, but I think I do upstairs.
Perhaps your minions watching.
So,
I'm not sure they can find it.
I'm going to bump this over so you can see what I
Dr. Weir,
see
what
while
I'd like to do is
while
first,
it
as to this
happens.
results board, you're referring to a document in front of you that appears to be a
Over here,
reduced
over
version
here,
of the
over
board.
here.
Is that right?
That's right. It's a little easier for me to handle. Yes.
Did you have an opportunity to review that board,
'Kay.
including the numbers that are written
See
in off
that?
to the far right?
I did.
And does that, without
We are
comparing
here.
every detail by any means, between the board, the exhibit itself, and the document you have,
We are
do they
here.
appear to contain the same information?
Yes.
it looks like
What I'd
he
like
is
to do
still going to be
is
there
direct your
tomorrow.
attention to item number 78, which is labeled the Ronald Goldman boot drop.
And then we have him here.
And
I don't
in
know who's
particular, is it
talking
your
to him.
understanding that with respect to, and
I
let's
don't
start
know
with
what
the
she's
RFLP
doing.
results,
All right.
And now
There
we
was
have him for
observed
2 more days.
from the use of 5 different probes,
So
10
I don't know.
bands
Probably
of greater
here.
intensity that were
And that will
consistent with
take
Nicole
us
Brown Simpson, and 4 additional bands that were consistent with
3.5
4
days
of the
to get
bands
here.
from Ronald Goldman.
Well, I need to be careful. My analyses are
You?
based on
Careful?
the bands.
No.
I have not gone into the
No.
relative intensities. That's beyond my area.
All right. Then limiting what I just described to you as not including the relative intensities, is that your understanding of the results reported by the laboratory on this test?
Yes, Cellmark has reported the mixed stains, and it looks like 4, 8, 13, 14 bands, 14 RFLP bands, some of which match the profile of Nicole Brown and some of which match the profile of Ronald Goldman.
Did you, as a result, and you obtained the actual lengths of these fragments so that you could make a statistical calculation of the approximate frequency that we're about to discuss?
Your Honor, I object to the term match, especially as to the bands consistent with Mr. Goldman, given the sum up report.
Oh, well, proceed.
Did you understand my question?
I received the actual band lengths in order to do calculations.
Now, as part of this calculation process, and again just focusing on the RFLP results, were you able to approximate or make estimates of how often these fragments would be found, assuming that, first of all, 2 people contributed to that mixture?
Yes, I was able to do that.
Did you also do that under the assumption that 3 people contributed to that mixture?
Yes.
And under those two assumptions, you then calculated these estimates. Is that right?
That's correct.
Now, from your review of how this board basically has been described as far as frequencies, there have been ranges.
It's
Is
that
that right?
lawyer's
In other words,
smug
using simply
smile.
the item above
Oops.
78,
That's not what we wanted to
there's
do.
written in under frequency 1 in 48 to
It's like when this guy Weir is savagely beating him with words, a huge ass kicking. The lawyer has this grin, shit-eating grin on his face, like, oh, that's nice, and he knows more when he is just being destroyed publicly. And that's what we're gonna see.
1 in 610. Is that right?
Yes, those will be the estimates based on different databases, yes.
And in fact, more than one database is normally used because there's more than one major racial group. Is that right?
Well, CELMAC has 3 databases. They were using 3 databases in their report, yes.
When you calculated the frequencies of these mixtures, and again, assuming two people contributed to item 78, and then we'll also have you describe it under the assumption 3 people contributed to 78, are you able to give us the same types of ranges for these combinations of characteristics?
Yes, we can give a range, once again, depending on which databases we used.
And in fact, would the estimates be different depending on which of the major groups you used?
Oh, yes, they will be different to some extent, yes.
Now, specifically with regard to item 78 then, if we put on the board 2 : would that be okay to signify your assumption that 2 people are in the stain?
That's right. That number would be the frequency with which 2 people, in essence, plucked off the street, two random people, had between them profiles which would look like the mixed stain profile.
When you perform that same estimate using 3 people, does it become a different number than it
does.
was with 2?
It does, yes.
Why? I'm not referring to this result in particular, but in general.
Well, it's a different question. If the chance of getting 2 people with blue eyes walk through the door next is different from the chance of getting 3 people with blue eyes walk through the door next. So if we ask a different question, we'll get different answers.
Okay, then specifically with regard to the RFLP mixture in item number 78, can you give us the most frequent of the estimates using the various databases for 2 people, that is 2 persons contributing to that stain,
Hi,
and then also
Red!
the least frequent, and with the court's permission, I'll simply write it in on the board.
I'm going to be referring to the report that I prepared and gave to you previously.
So would it assist you to refer to the report to ensure that you provide us with the exact estimates, that is, the exact numbers
How
in
are
your estimates in your report?
you?
Oh, it's essential.
All right. Then could you do that, Dr. Weir, with regard to item number 78, again, under the assumption that 2 people contributed to that RFLP mixture?
So if there were 2 people, and I get confused when I talk about smaller and larger, but the frequency, which is the more common,
I get
is one
confused
in,
when I
about
talk
300
about
million.
smaller or larger.
1 in 200.
I can help you figure that out, sir.
And then what would be the least common or the rarest amongst that range?
well, this is where it starts to get embarrassing, because I would say it's a 1 trillion.
Approximately.
Yes.
1 trillion.
1 trillion,
That's approximately 1 trillion?
yes.
This is smaller. This is larger.
And I'll put a circle around the 2 person. I hope
Okay.
that sound isn't bothering you, but you can't make the pen sign without the squeak, apparently. Did you also make a similar calculation under the assumption
Make sure you
that that
eat,
mixture
make
was
sure
the
you
result of 3
hydrate,
people?
make sure you rest. Come back
That is, 3
healthy.
persons contributed to
Your husband's
that data
fine.
shown by the RFLP results.
Yes, I did, and I'm just checking to make sure I've got the right.
Take snacks, absolutely. Like a whole pizza.
I don't seem to have the CELMAC figures for that item 78 for the RFLPs.
Would it assist if we examine that a little bit later?
It might be faster if we just went through the 2.
So, table 30?
Well, I'm looking at that. This is based on the FBI's PCR data.
All right, you want to go through the 2-person assumption?
That's fine. Would that be easier, Dr. Weir, to go through?
Yes,
the
yes.
2 persons?
I'm sorry, I don't have those right where I can see them.
All right, while we're on item 78, there were also PCR results indicating a mixture on that same stain from Ron Goldman's boot. Is that right?
That's right. Yes.
And did you perform the same calculation under the 2 assumptions, both that 2 persons contributed to those PCR results as well as 3 people?
Yes, I did.
Let's just do the 2 first, as you mentioned. Can you tell us what that range would be just for the PCR markers?
Yes. For the PCR markers, this is using the FBI's data, so the range goes from 1 in 500.
Sorry, Dr. First, the table.
Oh, I'm sorry, 21C.
1 in 500?
1 in 500 to 1 in 120,000. Now, I do have the 3 contributors for the PCR stain.
All right, then perhaps let's go through that. And that's again under the assumption that 3 persons contributed to this stain. Is that right?
That's right. What's the frequency with which 3 people unknown to us, and we don't know who these people are or what their types were, but just the chance of drawing 3 people at random.
Sorry, Your Honor. Can you just approach the witness? I just think he missed something on his table.
Excuse me, Mr. Clark, the PCR result is 1 in 285.
All right.
Thank you, Mr. All right.
Let me give that a try. Bad try. Perhaps we can put a patch over that at a convenient time, Your Honor.
Yes.
Is it 1 in 285 to 1 in 120,000 approximately?
Yes.
Okay, let's turn, if we can, then to the assumption that 3 people contributed to that stain.
That's right. So we're going to get a different answer because we're talking about a different scenario here. 3 people randomly, and this is from any 3 racial backgrounds.
Yo, forget
the
that
most,
viewer,
common
juror.
frequency is 1 in 60.
Forget that juror. No more.
1 in 60?
Yes.
All right.
And the least frequent is 1 in 400 and
Love coffee
490,000.
breaks every day. Love it.
490,000?
Yes.
First of all, Dr. Weir, and you've described why there is this difference between 2 and 3 people, and that's basically, under one situation, you're assuming 2 people
That's
contributed
right.
to that
That's
stain?
right. Yes. Well, we certainly know that there was not 1 contributor because there are more than 2 alleles at the probes.
And then the second assumption is that 3 people led to obtaining those results or contributed to that mixture.
That's right.
As far as the differences, and let's use the last one that you just described, which was from 1 in 60, approximately, to 1 in 490,000. Why is there that difference?
Because these PCR markers, the alleles in this mixed stain, have very different frequencies in the different racial databases.
In other words, there is some, at least, difference that's enough to create this difference from 60 to 490,000, because characteristics at these genetic markers differ amongst racial groups?
That's right, yes.
Okay, perhaps what we'll do is return to item 78 once you've had an opportunity to re-examine as to 3 contributors.
Thank you.
What I'd like to call your attention to next is a particular results board dealing with the glove found at Rockingham. Are you familiar with that board?
I think not only, in fact, I could probably find them.
And do you have one of those similar ledger-sized sheets that appears to be a Xerox of what's contained on what will shortly be the glove results board?
Yes, I do.
For the record, Your Honor, the exhibit that we placed up is People's Exhibit 272.
Thank you.
B, it appears.
Uh-oh. My camera's messing up. Look at it. I'm going to try to tap it. That did not work at all, did Oh! I tapped that. I tapped that. Yes, they did. And Nicole's. And Ron's.
First of all, with regard to this board, you not only produced a report, you also produced an addendum. Is that right, Dr. Weir?
That's right. I had done an initial analysis on these stains, including the mixtures, and then subsequently I did the RFLP results.
And did that include mixtures on various locations from what's been identified as the Rockingham glove.
Yes.
You have that board, I'm sorry, you have that Xerox in front of you that appears to contain the same information as People's Exhibit 272B, the results board?
Yes.
With regard to these glove, and let's start with the RFLP results, did you calculate these mixture frequencies?
Yes, I did. And let me just make sure I can find them.
Nobody likes it, John. I am court vibes. That's me.
Mr. Clark, do you have an extra copy of that particular page?
Do you have the addendum, Dr. Weir?
Oh, excuse me. Yes.
And does that addendum describe these frequencies for the
This
mixtures
man
that
is
we're
very
about to
smart.
discuss?
He just is.
Yes.
Okay. Starting with, and let's start with, if we could, what's marked area G1.
Yes.
And that would be the second result down on the chart itself.
Yes, that's right. And it's a little simpler maybe if we recognize that G1 and G3 in fact have the same profile types. I believe that's right. G1 and G... Is that right? Is it G1 and G4, excuse me.
So that when you give a result, I can write it on more than one stain to make
Yes,
things-
it looks in fact, doesn't it, that G1, G2 and G4 are all the same. They have a DQ alpha 1.1, 1.3, 4 and possibly a 1.2. They all have a D1 S80 with the 18 and the 24 alleles. So in fact, you'll be able to write the same numbers for G1, G2 and G4.
Okay, why don't we deal with, would it be easier to deal with the PCR results first, or the RFLP?
The RFLP is what I've got in front of me.
Okay,
Yes.
then let's start with, if we can, and I'm going to direct your attention to what's marked G1, and as you've described it, it will also apply to G2 and G4 as to the RFLP results?
Yes, just let me double check that. Oh, well, excuse me, I've got myself confused. Those three have the same PCR types, don't they?
Okay.
The RFLP, because the band lengths are a little bit different, and also a different number of bands were present, so we better do them one at a time.
Okay, then let's start, if we can, with area G1,
All right.
in particular the RFLP frequency estimations, under the assumption that there are two donors to that particular mixture.
So the most frequent is 1 in 6 million.
And that range goes to what?
To 1 in 600 billion.
600 billion?
Yes.
All right, and then did you also make an estimate for, or under the assumption there were three contributors?
I don't think I'm going to be able to find that quickly.
Okay. Would it be easier then to move on to
So
G2?
Yes.
Under the assumption there were two contributors on the RFLP results, then what would the range be?
The range turns out to be the same for G1. The same number of bands were visible in the mixture, and DOJ's method of doing the calculations will result in the same numbers. So it'll be the range 1 in 6 million to 600 billion.
Would it be easiest then to move on to G4 and the RFLP results under the assumption of two donors?
Yes.
Okay.
So G4 had one less matching band, and so the numbers are a little different, although not dramatically. They go from 1 in a million.
1 in 1 million?
Yes, 1 in 1 million. Up to 1 in... Yes, I do.
All right, Mr. Clark, I'm sorry, the Bundy Crime Scene Board was People's Exhibit,
259, Your Honor.
thank you, just for the record.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Weir, did you produce a new chart for this calculation?
Oh, yeah,
A new report? All right, Mr. Neufeld, you have that? This is on the glove?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And the Bundy, I'm sorry, the glove board is People's,
Exhibit 272D.
thank you.
Dr. Weir, with regard to this particular board, and you have at this point described a number of the results already yesterday, is that right?
That's right, yes.
There again appear to be, and in the instance of this board, a number of labels that say mix off to the right of the frequency column.
Yes.
And are those used to describe the same thing as to the term mix on the previous board, that the frequencies to the left of that word are again approximations when there are assumed to be 2 or 3 contributors to each of those particular evidence items?
That's right.
Now, let's start with, at the very top, there appears to be an item number, actually they're all item number 9, but there's one result at the very top of the board containing what appear to be DQ alpha results only. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Mm-hmm.
In other words, that was a particular stain for which there was only one genetic marker results following the use of PCR.
That's right.
Did you calculate an approximate frequency of, again, these 2 contributor possibilities versus 3 contributor possibilities, as you did with the other stains yesterday?
Yes, I did.
And for that uppermost stain on the results board, do you have an approximate frequency, assuming that 2 contributors donated that set of characteristics?
Yes, for 2 contributors, the range is from 1 in 30.
1 in 30?
Yes. To 1 in 190.
And did you perform a similar calculation assuming 3 contributors?
Yes, for 3, the range is from 1 in 6 to 1 in 90.
Now, with regard to the glove, can you tell us, and what I'm referring you to now are items G1, G2, and G4,
Yes.
in particular the RFLP typing results. And yesterday we spoke about assuming 2 contributors. Can you describe for us what those approximations would be, assuming 3 contributors?
Yes, I can. So the items G1 and G2 both have the same number of bands in the RFLP profiles. So for item G1 and for G2, the range is from 1
Now
in
I'm
3,000.
here. I just turned my camera off for a second. It was glitching. It was all glitchy.
Up until 1 in 10 million.
And that would apply also to the 3 contributor situation on the RFLP results on G2?
That's right, for G2 it's the same range, 1 in 3,000 to 1 in 10 million.
And then lastly, with regard to this board, did you make a similar calculation for G4, assuming again 3 contributors to the RFLP mixture?
Yes, I did. For 3 contributors, the range is from 1 in 20,000 to 1 in 90 million.
With regard to that range again, what is the reason that that range could be from 20,000 to 90 million?
Well, it depends on the databases used. We're assuming 3 contributors, all of whom are unknown to us. Any of those 3 can be from any racial background, so that we should use any of the current databases. We don't know which to use, so we use them all. We use all possible combinations. And that's just the various bands have different frequencies in the different databases.
All right. Lastly, Dr. Weir, I'd like to take you to one final board. Which I believe, Your Honor, is People's Exhibit 260. It's labeled the results board, or we've described it as the results board for the Bronco.
Thank you.
Doctor, we're turning your attention to this particular board. Is this another board that you have been provided basically a smaller Xeroxed copy version of?
Oh, yes, it is.
And that board, or that chart that you were provided, contained results as are written in currently on this board, the large chart that's here in court.
That's right.
Can we turn your attention then to item number 29, the steering wheel?
Certainly.
Did you make calculations in a similar manner as you've described yesterday and this morning for various different situations in which 2 contributors may have provided the characteristics shown in these results, or 3 contributors?
Yes, I did.
Have you also, in the instance of the results from the Bronco automobile, calculated estimates for how often the characteristics would be seen in these pieces of evidence if 4 contributors were involved?
Yes, I have.
Specifically with regard to item number 29, there were results obtained from that item using PCR markers alone. Is that right?
That's right.
In other words, no RFLP results were obtained on that particular item.
That's right.
Then using these PCR markers alone, did you calculate again for 2, 3, and 4 potential contributors these same estimates of frequencies?
I did.
Let's start, if we could, with number 29, and assuming 2 contributors, could you give us the approximate frequency that those characteristics would be found?
Yes, so for 2, the range is from 1 in 60 to 1 in 11,000.
Did you make the same types of estimates, assuming that there were 3 people who provided those DNA characteristics?
Yes, for 3, the range is from 1 in 9 to 1 in 3,500.
3,500?
3,500, thank you.
And then lastly, what about assuming 4 contributors?
Well, if we saw 4, we mightn't be surprised at all. The range goes from 1 in 1.
Why 1 and 1?
Well, we have some fairly common bands in this profile, and if we allow 4 people to contribute, it's going to be very likely that amongst the 4 we'll see the mixture.
So would the proper way of writing it be 1 in 1
Yes, I think so.
to what? What would be the other end of the range?
1 in 3,000.
Now, when you use the term 1 in 1, is what you're saying that if 4 people were selected at random, that there would nearly be a 100% chance that they would have this combination of markers?
That's correct.
Turning your attention to item 31 from the center console, and again, these were results generated by PCR only.
That's right, yes.
Did you make these same types of calculations for the DQ alpha marker and the D1S80 marker?
Yes, I did.
Okay, let's start with the assumption that there are 2 contributors.
For item 31 and 2 contributors, the range is from 1 in 4,700 to 1 in 19,000.
4,700 to 19,000?
Right.
What about assuming 3 contributors?
The range there is 1 in 4,600 to 1 in 71,000.
4,600 to 71,000?
Right.
And then lastly, assuming 4.
The range is from 1 in 1,300 to 1 in 350,000.
All right, Dr. Weir, then lastly, if I can turn your attention to items 303, 304, and 305. Did you again perform this similar calculation process?
Yes, I did. And these items, once again, have the same profile as each other, so the numbers are going to be the same for the whole 3. So for item 303, and assuming 2 contributors, the range is 1 in 1,400 to 1 in 18,000.
And that would be the same, assuming 2 contributors for 303, 304, and 305?
That's right, yes.
Then I'll write that in on the other 2.
Fine.
Did you also perform a calculation assuming 3 contributors to each of these 3 stains?
Yes, then there the range is 1 in 450
And the upper range?
29,000.
And lastly, assuming 4 contributors to each of these stains,
The range is 1 in 49
and the upper range?
69,000.
And Your Honor, I've placed those numbers on People's Exhibit 260.
Thank you.
Dr. Weir, you have had an opportunity to review all of the frequencies, and I'm talking about now. the frequencies other than those that you've described for the mixtures over the last 2 days.
Yes, I have.
And you have had an opportunity to examine the reports of the testing laboratories wherein they describe relative frequencies for those stains that appear to be from one person. Is that right?
That's true.
You have also examined the results as reported on all 5 of the results boards, that is DNA results boards in this case. Is that right?
Yes, I have.
You have examined those results as well as the
It's hard to continue to live stream because you get paid like 13 cents an hour. So, yeah, he had to go to work. Bill had to work to make money. Hopefully he will start streaming again. I talk to him every day almost. I think about him every day at least. Last night he sent me a picture of a birdhouse he made, and it's beautiful. Beautiful. He's working hard.
databases that these laboratories utilize. Is that right?
Yes, the FBI's. I have not examined all the data used by DOJ in their report. I have not examined the Orange County Hispanic database. When I was doing calculations, I was using FBI Hispanic.
When you performed your calculations, you utilized or used the databases from the FBI that you described yesterday. Is that right?
That's right, yes.
And as a result of your use of those databases and the specific results in this case, you produced your own approximate frequencies, not only for the mixtures, but also for the stains that appear to come from one person.
Yes, I did.
Did you compare those results that you obtained with those reported by the testing laboratories, in this case, Cellmark and the Department of Justice?
Yes, I did.
Do you have an opinion about the accuracy and reliability that is, of the results produced by those two laboratories in this case?
Yes, I think the results reported, generated by those they are all good estimates of the frequencies.
Thank you. I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Neufeld?
Yes, Your Honor. You want to take 5 minutes so I can handle the discovery or documents?
Sure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a brief 5 or 10 minute recess just to cycle into cross-examination. Please remember all my admonitions. Let me ask you to step back into the jury room.
You guys couldn't last 8 more minutes. You guys had to go back into the jury room now. Our stream is 8 more minutes long. Get to work.
Copies of the items I intend to utilize to cross-examine this witness.
Oh, here we go.
Taking me about
Wait.
2 or 3 minutes just to put together.
Wait.
I'm
Don't,
sorry, Your
don't.
Honor. Does the court prefer to see
No.
overheads first?
Why? Did you... They switched frickin' lawyers, guys. We're not getting the cocky one with the grin that infuriates us. We're getting the other idiot that infuriates us. I wanted the cocky one to infuriate me. And this is a bunch of bull. They can't just switch. You're not allowed to do that. Because remember when Marcia talks when it's Dearden's turn, the judge has a hissy fit? They switched lawyers. So they had the hearing, and it was the other guy questioning him. The name is right on I just can't remember. It sucks getting old. It just sucks. Now we get Newfield, and we were really happy when we were done with him, and now we're back in the Newfield freaking. Guys, please go buy some rum before tomorrow. We still have 6 minutes left, but before tomorrow, we're all going to need some rum. And if you are not in the mood for the taste of alcohol at 6:30 to 8:30 a.m., then get vodka.
First? Should I just
I want you to show it to counsel.
No, I don't get a break. I'm a server. Okay, Josh, imagine this. Imagine. You go out to dinner tonight. You saved up your money all week to go out to dinner tonight. And you're there and you order a Coke. And your server gets busy. And it takes like 5 minutes to get your Coke. And over there you see the servers sitting down. Maybe they're eating. Maybe they're scrolling on their phone. Not your server specifically, but servers in that restaurant sitting down. Sitting. And you are waiting for your Coke. You would lose your shit. When the server stops to watch the television for a second, blow their nose, scratch something, when their feet stop going like this, the whole restaurant loses their shit. Oh my God.
Ms. Robertson,
They're supposed to be getting me my Coke.
CV.
Yeah, I know. Your Coke is
Right,
coming.
what's the defense next in order?
No, I don't get a break.
Should be 1197. Mrs. Robertson?
That's not true. Okay, here's how I get a break. So, I use my age against the system. Because when we're bussing tables, we take the plates to a trash can, scrape it in, and then put the plates in a bus bin. All right? That, you with me so far? Okay. Those trash cans, they get heavy really quick, especially if some asshole servers decide to dump drinks in the trash can. Don't ever do that. Never. Okay? So I tell the other people, look, I gotta empty this trash can halfway through the shift, or I won't be able to get it into the dumpster. And let me tell you, getting that trash can into the dumpster, even halfway through a shift, is hard for me. Here's how I do it. I'm not lying, but this is where I get my break, by the way. I take the bag out to the dumpster. I grab it with both hands, right? And I prepare, and it's way behind me, and then I swing it way up high onto the dumpster, onto the lid, because it's not physically possible for me to hold the dumpster lid open and then with my other hand lift the bag into the dumpster, because the dumpster is above my frickin' head. It's high. It's too high. And the lid is the length of the dumpster. So if I'm holding it, if I'm opening the lid from the end and I put my arm straight up, the dumpster's open like this far because it's above my head. So I have to move down the line to try to push the lid up from back further. Well, then it gets too heavy for me to lift the rest of the lid up. So the most I can get a dumpster lid open is about this high. I just, with one hand, I can't. So what I do is I take the bag, both hands, and pray to God it does not rip mid-flight. And I put it on the dumpster, on the lid, and then I open the other lid and push it in. And that's when I get my break. That's when I get to sit down for a second and hope nobody says, "Where's Kathy?" Where did Kathy go? Because it does take me a minute to get the damn trash into the dumpster. I can't just walk over to it and throw it in. I just can't do that. I have to prepare myself. I have to warm up. I have to wind up and then throw it up there. And then I do sit down for a minute and take a little bit. Justice Jane. Hold on. Are you Hedwig? No, you are not Hedwig. Hold on. See, everybody has their new names, and now I don't know who anybody is. Justice Jane, who are you? You have to tell us, because we don't know. I'm looking hard at... My eyesight's too bad to see little icons. Oops, I spoke and talked through the entire rest of the stream. That's fine. He wasn't about to say anything half as interesting as me trying to get trash into a dumpster. Just like filling the soda machine. See, we have the 8 fountain soda machines. Well, the ice goes in at the top. To put ice into the machine, you have to dump it into the top. Just to get the lid off of the top. I'm on my tippy toes, and I like peel one corner up, peel another corner up. Then I have like a half of a second, a half of a centimeter. I have to push the back corner up enough that I can twist it. Then I can slide it off. Now to get the ice in there, I cannot fill the ice bin and walk it over and dump it up way up over my head. I just can't. Come on. I can't. I have to work a full shift. So I fill up my ice bins halfway full. Dump it. Go back. Dump it. Go back. Dump it. So it takes me twice as long as everybody else. But that's what I got to do. We threw out trash once at Big Dog, and there was 2 girls in the dumpster. In the dumpster. Short vibes. I got your short vibes right here, buddy. Show you my short vibes. I want to show you short vibes, buddy. After what you did when you were a judge earlier, you shouldn't even talk. I went on your stream because you were Judge Josh. As soon as I went on your stream, you stopped streaming. It was rude. Alright guys, we're going to get back into this guy tomorrow. I hope you guys have a great day. Wait a second. Oh. I thought I actually had someone who is talking to me on Twitch, but I was wrong. It's just a bot. Have a great day, guys. See you next time. Behave. Bye.